Hey everybody, welcome to the Age of Reason podcast. This is episode number 74 with Mike and Alex, where we are not for the faint of thought. And before we get started, we should thank our third host who did quite a bit of work for us on social media and everything else. So thanks a lot, Nick. It was fun for last 3 months or so.
Yeah, it was definitely fun. Have some fun in school and join us again soon.
Yeah, so, and he will be. So, Nick actually doesn't go back to school for, I think, 2 weeks, but he is going to be going on a road trip. He left today from Northern California. He's heading to Washington, and then he's driving to Indiana, Mike Pence's state. And he's supposed to be doing some kind of road trip, on the spot reporting for us. So he's not sure if he's going to be able to do this in video format or if he's just going to do audio or whatever, but whatever we get from him will be posted, and he'll be back on whenever he has a chance. So yeah, but man, we got quite a few new listeners this week, man. Over the last few weeks, we have new listeners in France, and I see our Netherlands guy is still there. Actually, I think we have 2 or 3 people in the Netherlands now. But Japan is up there. We're kind of going international here. Florida has been basically contributing to a lot of numbers and listeners for us lately. So welcome everybody. Hope you guys enjoy the show. If you're haters that are just listening to us, still whatever. Enjoy the show. And Alex, you gonna do Skeptic this week or no?
Yeah, I got some highlights, Bible highlights to bring up.
All right. Well, let's start this episode like we try to do every other one. Ladies and gentlemen, bow your heads. Let us think. Pastor Alex.
All right. So I got again some highlights. These are some pretty good ones. They're going to be a little bit long. Some of these I'm reading quotes from the Bible, obviously, and that's because you honestly have to hear this shit. You can't make it up. So,
well, somebody did make it up.
Well, that's true. Nice. So the first one I'm calling Baldy and the Bear, and this one's in 2 Kings. So Elisha, this is Bible talk here. So Elisha went up to Bethel. As he was walking along the road, some boys came out of the town and jeered at him. "Get out of here, Baldy. Get out of here, Baldy." So he turned around, looked at them, and called down a curse on the name of the Lord. 2 bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of the boys.
Jesus.
He then went on to Mount Carmel and then returned to Samaria. So he went on. He lived happily ever after. But
do not piss off Michael Chiklis.
Yeah. So okay, that's the Baldy and the Bear. So next Jesus one I have Christ. Is these are the rules for priests, and this comes out of Leviticus. So they must be holy to the God and must not profane the name of their God, because they present food, the food offerings to the Lord, the food of their God. They are to be holy. So the reason I quoted that one is because I guess I was not aware that they did more food presentations. Obviously, the Catholics do the wafer and wine,
the zombie ritual.
Yeah, apparently priests used to offer food to the god. I don't know how that went, but so one thing: if a priest's daughter defiles herself by becoming a prostitute, she disgraces her father, and she must be burned in fire.
I love this. Kill him with death, burned in fire. Did they write it? I don't know. How else would you burn somebody? I guess branding, maybe. I don't know. Help me out here.
I am.
You're as clue. All right.
Yep. So then let's see, what else do we got? So he talks about the high priest, and I left some of the quotes out, but the high priest is anointed by the oil of his God. So I'm not sure exactly what that means.
What the fuck?
So this guy cannot leave the sanctuary is one of the rules on him. And the woman he marries must be a virgin. He must not marry a widow, a divorced woman, or a woman defiled by prostitution. Only a virgin from his own people. So
Well, wait. When it starts listing off so it says he can only marry a virgin, and then it lists off what he's not allowed to marry. I mean, so
there's nothing else.
I guess there is. There's. Well, no, I guess not. So basically, this is just more of the no sex before marriage thing, because like a girl can't have a boyfriend for a long time or a fiance. They fuck. They deem that prostitution, I guess. Because like obviously the no sex before marriage thing is, I mean, it's obvious for back then, but I mean they refer to that as prostitution.
No, I think prostitution was much more rampant back then. I mean, it's the oldest profession, right? So
and the most glorious.
Can't disagree with you there. So the next part, this is the reason why I really highlighted these rules, because the next part is not very Christian-like. So he's talking to the priests at this. This is God's rules to the priests. For the generations to come, none of your descendants who has a defect may come near to offer the food of his God. No man who has any defect may come near. No man who is blind or lame, disfigured or disformed. No man with a crippled foot or hand, or who is hunchback, or a dwarf, or who has an eye defect, or festering or running sores. And this is the best one, or damaged testicles.
Wow.
So basically it says no descendant of Aaron the priest who has any defect is to come near to present the food offerings to the Lord. He has a defect and he will desecrate my sanctuary, basically.
Wow. But that's when you're born that way, that's part of God's plan. That's just the way God made you.
Apparently he didn't think that.
He didn't want those tiny, disgusting dwarf hands or somebody with a club foot.
Or one testicle.
Or damaged text. Wow. All right. Sounds like a loving God.
Yeah, I mean, just to me, in most cases, people that I meet that are disabled, in most cases are religious, and they have like a kind of that attitude, like, this is what God wants or whatever. And apparently he didn't want you.
At least not feeding him. He's treating you guys like the butler from Scary Movie 2. That's my strong hand.
So speaking of feeding, so this one is in the book of Ezekiel. So God tells Ezekiel in the memorial of the siege of Jerusalem, he needs to build a model of the city, and he needs to lie down on his left side for 390 days and then his right side for 40 days. But so before he does this, he needs to collect food, lentils, beans, barley. And then here's the quote. So eat the food as you would a loaf of barley bread. Bake it in the sight of people, using human excrement for fuel.
Whoa.
The Lord said. In this way, the people of Israel will eat defiled food among the nations where I drive them. I honestly wasn't able to figure out what that last one went. But so then Ezekiel says, not so, sovereign Lord. I have never defiled myself. From my youth until now, I have never eaten anything found dead or torn by wild animals, nor no impure meat has ever entered my mouth. So God reasoned with him and said, very well, I will let you bake your bread over cow dung instead of human excrement.
Praise be. Wait, is that the end?
That's the end. But
I
mean,
Jesus.
He basically
wow.
He made the guy eat. Well, at first it was going to be bread cooked over shit, and then he came up with cow shit.
There's an issue there. I mean, God is supposed to be perfect, right? So there shouldn't be any reasoning with him because he is reason. Like, there shouldn't be any better ideas or anything like that. I find it weird that God would get into an argument with a mortal.
Oh, don't worry, God, it's coming.
Oh, all right. I
That's
spoke
gonna.
too soon.
Yeah, but I think he was more suggestive back then. He took suggestions.
He was supposed to be the wrathful God back then. He was a God that flooded the world and made what one family fuck each other to get us back into existence and shit like that.
Maybe bipolar.
All right, there isn't an angry God. There's only God when he drinks.
So the next one is I'm titling a bad tree, and this is in the book of Matthew. So early in the morning, as Jesus was on his way back to the city, he was hungry. Seeing a fig tree by the road, he went up to it, but found nothing on it except leaves. Then he said to it, "May you never bear fruit again." Immediately the tree withered. So when his disciples saw this, they were amazed. "How did the fig tree wither so quickly?" they asked. And Jesus replied, "Truly I tell you, if you have faith and do not doubt, not only can you do what was done to the fig tree, but also you can say to this mountain, 'Go throw yourself into the sea,' and it will be done. If you believe, you will receive whatever you ask for in prayer."
Donald Trump, please throw yourself into the ocean. Let's see if prayer works.
He's on vacation. He might fall into the pond at his golf course.
Or fucking sand trap or something. Wouldn't that be hilarious if you had a golfing accident of some kind?
It's bound to happen as much time as he's spending there.
I think so. It would still be enjoyable as disgusting as it is, but if his tight ass shorts just split next time,
I don't think anybody
nobody needs to see that, but that would ruin him.
No. Okay, so the next one I have here is God, the animal rights activist, and this one's in Numbers 22. So basically, the angel of the Lord, which I'm not exactly sure which of the Holy Trinity that is, but so the angel of the Lord is walking, and there's a donkey, and the donkey sees the angel of the Lord, and it stops. Earlier in the story, it names the owner of the donkey. His name is Balaam. So it lays down under Balaam, and he was angry with it and beat it with his staff. So then the Lord channeled his inner Shrek and made the donkey talk. And I'm a flying talking donkey.
Blue flower with thorns.
So the donkey looks at Balaam and says, "What have I done to you to make you beat me these 3 times?" So Balaam wasn't fazed by a talking donkey. He says, "You made a fool of me. If only I had a sword in my hand, I would kill you right now."
You jackass.
So the donkey says back, "Am I not your own donkey, which you have always ridden to this day? Have I been in the habit of doing this to you?" "No," said Balaam. And then the Lord opened Balaam's eyes, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the road with his sword drawn. So he bowed low and fell face down. The angel of the Lord asked him, "Why have you beaten your donkey these 3 times?" "I have come here to oppose you because your path is a reckless one before me. The donkey saw me and turned away from me these 3 times. If I had not turned away, I would certainly have killed you by now, but I would have spared the donkey."
All right. So, all the death and murder and murder by death that exists in the Bible, don't beat animals, which I'm all for. That's great, but
yeah, you think there would be some other priorities?
Yeah, maybe not raping virgins and taking them for yourselves and slaughtering children. Maybe that. But jackasses, no.
Okay, so earlier you said God shouldn't get into mental quarrels with humans, and apparently that's not the only kind of quarrels he got with humans. In Genesis, it's talking about Jacob, and Jacob was moving, so he got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 sons and crossed the ford of Jabbok. I guess
Real
it's a
quick, how many of those 11 sons do you think came from his wife?
servant. Oh.
Just throwing it out there.
So he sent all his possessions with his family. So Jacob was left alone at his house, and suddenly a man appears, and he wrestled with him until daybreak. So, I, I mean,
What was the
keeping
confrontation? They just look at each other and
that's,
ah.
I mean, when I'm reading this, I don't get it. But so basically, and this
I'm just imagining two people just. He opens the door, they lock eyes, and then just fucking Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant. It just goes down.
Oh man! So when the man saw that he could not overpower Jacob, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled the man. So basically, when I was looking, they were saying he basically dislocated his hip with a touch, which I don't know how you can wrestle somebody if you dislocate their hip by touching them. But so then Jacob said, "Let me go, for it is daybreak. We've been wrestling enough for all night." um, so. Oh no, I'm sorry. So yeah, the man said that, and then Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me," which I'm not sure. Again,
what the fuck?
The man asked, "What is your name?" Jacob said, "Jacob," and then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcame." And then he's like, and speaking of which, I just came, so it's time for me to get out of here.
Yeah, exactly. Good luck with your broken hip. See you later. Wow.
Yeah, so there's some more highlights in there, and more to come.
So, all right. So, for our new listeners, we always start off most of the time, unless we have a ton of news or we don't get a chance to do a bunch of research. We always start our shows with Skeptic Sunday School because these are the stories that Christians and Muslims or whoever, they don't learn this in church. They don't talk about these things. For instance, you and I both went to church growing up. Did you know until in recent years that Jesus had an encounter with a dragon? No, me neither. They never fucking said that. I probably would have enjoyed going to church if I would have gotten to hear about Jesus the Dragon Slayer instead of, I don't know, Jesus the Socialist. I mean, I appreciate it now, but it was boring when I was younger. But yeah, they don't talk about that. They don't, they tell you masturbation is a sin. They don't tell you that God was trying to force a guy to like bang his dead brother's wife. Isn't that what that story was? Story of So yeah. I mean, it's just fucking ridiculous. But anyway, we should probably move on. So what you want to go first with news?
Sure. I'll start. So the first thing I got here is the NAACP has issued their travel warning for the state of Missouri. It's the first travel warning in the group's 180-year existence. So basically they say individuals traveling in the state are advised to travel with extreme caution. Race, gender, and color-biased crimes have a long history in Missouri. So that's part of it, is their history and their record. But the new thing that's more recent, and the reason why this advisory was issued is because of a state Senate Bill 43, and it's a new law in Missouri, and it makes it more difficult to sue for housing or employment discrimination, basically. So what it does is before, if your race or gender played a part in your firing, that was enough to make a case, hey, I can sue this guy for discrimination. So under this new law, it needs to be the sole reason of your termination. So I mean, obviously, this shifts kind of the burden of proof from the people getting fired to now, excuse me, from the
Right.
employers. Now it's more on the employee to say, "Hey, there's nothing else. I was a perfect employee. The only reason they could have fired me was because I was gay or because I'm black or whatever the reason." Um, so, so that I mean that's really the new thing that's spurring this, but really it's because their history is
And just to note, Missouri's a red state, so this is something that I try to point out to Republicans when I'm talking to them. I don't know any. I know Republicans that are like financially stable. They have a retirement fund, shit like that. But I don't know any Republicans that are like millionaires. So most of the Republicans that I know, they're not CEOs. Maybe they're supervisors or managers or something like that. But they're not at the top of the totem pole. And one of the things that I try to explain to them is when stuff like this happens, like you can argue. Yeah, I don't care that we spend $4,000 on corporate welfare. I'm going to worry about the $400 that I spend on government assistance a year out of my tax dollars. Fuck the $4,000 because they're job creators and they keep the economy going. They deserve to have that money back. I think that's completely just asinine. But even if they agree with that, things like this where workers' rights are just being taken away. Because that's pretty much what's happening. I imagine if you look at this on paper, it's not that they're taking workers' rights away. It's just they're making it really fucking difficult to prove discrimination now. And how that helps the average person or just the American worker, which is 95% of the population, I don't know. I'm curious to see how a Republican would defend this one.
Well,
I don't think they can, but
I'll playing a little devil's advocate. I would say that it might be that the job creators are afraid to hire a black guy because if I have to fire him, he's just gonna say I only fired him because he's black, right? So this whole affirmative action thing makes the whole thing harder for business owners because now if I do need to fire a gay or lesbian employee, they're going to come back and say, oh, it's not because I missed 10 days in a row. It's because I'm gay or lesbian.
And the reason that's bullshit is, in my career, I have, and don't get me wrong. I'm not bragging about this, but in my career, I have fired a lesbian, a black one. I've fired blacks. I have fired Hispanics. I've had to let them go. And I haven't worried about it one day about a discrimination suit. I mean, it depends on how you treat your employees and it depends on your track record. Like, where I'm at right now, two of my right-hand guys are black males and, we get along great, but the thing is even if we had a bad falling out and one of them got terminated or whatever, coming back and proving, not to mention I have, this is episode 74, so I have somewhere around 80 hours of my of documentation of how I feel about civil rights and shit like that. It would be hard to prove. But if your company is practicing diversity and you have your shit together, I really would not think that this is something to worry about. I'm not going to be the first person to say that, every black person or every lesbian or any distinction is going to be a great employee.
No, that's absolutely fair. But just remember what you just said, if your history and all that, and then remember that we are talking about Missouri. So,
yeah, exactly.
I'm sure if you go back 2 or 3 years, I'm sure pretty much.
Well, yeah, and for the NAACP to be offering their first travel ban to a state, they've been around 180 years. Didn't they have a travel ban on half the country just, 60 years ago? I would think so. It's got to be pretty fucking bad if they're doing that, and this is the first time they've done it. And Missouri is not known. Sorry, Missouri is not known. I don't think of Missouri when I think of, Alabama or Mississippi or Texas or Arizona. Like I don't know, maybe I should, but I don't group Missouri into that.
I know a couple people from Missouri, and I think it's a fair assessment to put them in there. But basically, it's not everybody in Missouri, I'm sure, is like that. But the people that I know, it's called the Show Me State, and they're quick to remind me that I'm from Missouri. You're gonna have to show me. Like, okay.
What the fuck?
I don't know.
But I'm sure it's different in the rural areas. But I mean, what does that mean? Show me your pecker. Like, all right. Backwoods sons of bitches. And that's the thing. I don't even think of Missouri as like being backwoods or anything. I don't know. I've never been there, so I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't think you're missing much.
No, I don't think so either.
So going forward, Tama Carlton, a researcher at the University of California, recently Cal Berkeley, sorry, recently finished up a study, and it was comparing 5 decades worth of suicide data in India with climate change patterns. And she believes she's found some kind of, actually, in her words, a strong influence on suicide rates during the growing season. And I mean, this is kind of the first study that I've ever seen that kind of connects climate change with any kind of loss to life, and in this case, suicide. Which in reading this article, I found that India is actually the world leading. I mean, based on their population, that's not too far-fetched, but 133,600, give or minus, people a year commit suicide in India. And that's a staggering number.
Yeah, shit, we thought Seattle was bad.
And one in 10 of those are farmers. And I mean, basically, it doesn't take a genius to make the connection. If your crop gets ruined, or for several years you're in a drought or flood, it could be that's your livelihood. So they're saying that is causing so many people. I think they said 59,000 farmers over 30 years that potentially could be due to climate change. So, yeah, it's obviously it's real, and it's affecting us kind of everywhere. So,
yeah, and I mean, speaking of climate change, just today, a scientific report was leaked purposely to the New York Times because a lot of these departments are afraid that this administration is not is either going to shut them down or prevent them from releasing it. So they released their fifth draft of it today. It's not their final one, but this is made up of several different scientists and authors that work for the federal government that basically leaked a report to the New York Times that they are now 100% positive that over the last 60 years, the increase to climate change and the fact that we've gone up, I think they said 1.2 degrees in the last 60 years, is completely due to man-made fossil fuel material and the way we live. And there's no way to argue about that now. And the problem is you can't get a straight answer from this White House. You have, Trump in the, even before, I think it was before he was a candidate, he said it was a Chinese hoax in order for them to get the jump on us with their economic ventures and trading and all that. And now Nikki Haley comes out this morning after it got released and says that the president acknowledges, as well as the rest of the White House, that climate change is real and that it is man-made, but we need to figure out how we can combat climate change without wrecking our economy. Now, we've talked quite a few times about our thoughts on this and the thoughts of other prominent people, such as Bernie Sanders, Robert Reich, that sort of thing. about how that would actually stimulate the economy and create a shit ton of jobs. This is just what this is the Republican rhetoric, but now they're saying that, they believe in, not only do they believe in climate change, they believe that it is man-made, but if you work for the government in Florida, you're not even allowed to mention the word. I mean, that's still a thing over there in Rick Scott's state. It's just, these motherfuckers can't get it right. But I imagine they're going to come out and call this report fake news, whatever. But that report came out today.
Yeah, just more evidence is basically, I mean, stacking up. It's getting. I mean, it's been overwhelming for a while, but whether or not people see it and address it is kind of the next issue. And like you said, it is going to cost money up front to make some changes to get ready for solar power or wind power. Or
I just did. My solar panels go in tomorrow. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is an upfront cost, but at the end, I mean, obviously, when you look to this report from India, the results of not doing anything are
well, and there is something that you can do that would have a huge impact, and it doesn't really cost anything. Cut down, and Alex and I, trust me, like we love meat, like. Right, barbecues, like fucking carne asada, steak, fucking all that shit. But that meat and dairy, cows are the cause of the majority of the deforestation on our planet, especially in South America, where parts of the rainforest and other types of forests are being chopped down all over this fucking planet to make room for more livestock, because Americans, as well as the rest of the developed world, but especially us, we have an addiction to red meat. Now, I mean, I don't need to get into the health sides of it and whether it's good for you or not. I mean, people can debate that all day. But the truth of the matter is if you want to make a small impact, stop buying products that come from cows, whether it's dairy or meat. Cut yourself down to twice a week. Figure out how much you eat that stuff and how much money you spend on it, and just let it go a little bit. Have something else. That's what I've been trying to do. So there is something we can do.
Yeah, I mean, I was reading an article recently that I mean, obviously each person can have an impact in recycling and things like that. But the article was interesting. It was saying that major companies have basically started funding the idea that individual people, like we should start shaming people for not recycling or something. And I agree, recycling is important, and obviously we recycle here, but they're kind of shifting again the burden of responsibility from them into, let's not worry about our pollution or how we farm. Let's worry about how you consume. Yeah. And I think that was an interesting article because I do, and it's saying basically like you can have an impact, and it's obviously better to have a positive than a negative impact, but it's going to be so small compared to obviously a big pharmaceutical company or whatever who's pumping chemicals into the air or whatever. So
I mean, and one easy thing that corporations can do is, and I know it's not that difficult because I've been a part of it. I've watched it happen. You can go as paperless as possible. We do not need paper anywhere near as much as we are using it nowadays. I was talking to a friend of ours. You've met him, Fry. And he made a prediction. I totally agree with this. He thinks that over the next 20 to 25 years, we're going to start seeing offices go away. Offices, all those skyscraper buildings, all that shit. All the people that basically work in an office, they're going to be working from home. It's going to happen. I mean, imagine the cost of electricity, again, the paper, not only the carbon footprint, but the cost on your employees for gas mileage, the time spent in traffic, the cost of maintenance for our roads, all that shit. Imagine if Los Angeles cut down on, just a quarter of the people that commute to work. Just a quarter. That 405 would never be backed up again, I don't think. But, that's a direction that corporations can head towards, and not every corporation can do it, but there are plenty of offices out there where if you spend all day sitting at a desk answering phones, all that, I mean, that's what Lindsay does for a living. My wife has an office job and works from home. I mean, her company's still located in Arizona. So I mean, there are things that we could do to cut down on this. The problem is we're taking way too long.
Definitely agreed.
Is it my turn?
I got one last one. I mean, this one is kind of ongoing, and it's basically it appears that North Korea has the capabilities of being basically a nuclear power. U.S. intelligence have a report that says that they've been able to basically weaponize and strap the weapon onto a rocket.
They made a warhead small enough to fit on the shells that they've been launching,
exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Yes. So after UN sanctions, they've recently he's threatened the U.S. territory of Guam, saying that I'm not sure. I mean, that's like picking the smallest kid, and saying I'm going to kick your ass. But
yeah. When he is the smallest kid.
Yeah. So Donald Trump responded measured and calculated. No, just kidding. Basically, he said they're going to face fire and fury like the world has never seen. And if that's not enough, he repeated that exact same phrase.
All right. Let's take our Make America Trumpless Again hats off real quick. And let's try to look at this from an unobjective view or an objective view, whichever one works. Fill in the word. He also said, and I gotta say, I'm not impressed, but I am surprised at Rex Tillerson. I'm surprised that he's actually. I haven't found a major fuck up on his part. And he's probably the most well-spoken, cool, calm, collected member of that team. So I'm kind of shocked. But Tillerson, Trump, and Nikki Haley all came out, and they're still saying, and even Trump said this today, that that a show of force is still a last result with North Korea. Sanctions were approved 15-0. And that's what they're pissed about. That's what the retaliation and what these threats are even coming from North Korea is because new sanctions got placed on them, which they say are unfounded, but obviously not. But I mean, the thing is with Trump saying, along with his team, that we're still trying to find a non-violent, non-confrontational resolution to this issue. We're still open to it, whether they are or not, whatever. They're saying that, and Trump saying, if you do this, I'm going to basically disintegrate your fucking country. Like, would we have... I can't tell you that I'd have a problem with the president saying that. Now, I've said many times before that I would much rather have anybody else running this conflict than Donald Trump. But how real is our problem with what his statement is, or was?
With Donald Trump's, I think it is. So this is an article that I was reading right before, is lawmakers on both sides basically dump on Trump for what he said. And just for example, so John McCain, who has literally probably advocated for every single war
right
that we could have possibly been into, said that. Let's see. He says it's not terrible what he said, but it's kind of classic Trump in that he overstates things, and that basically, I mean, he shouldn't. It was too much, and I think the problem is with North Korea. It's not like it was. It would be different if China was making these threats at us. An established country who's functional, basically. And the thing is, with North Korea being like the kind of crazy kid who you don't know if he's going to shoot up the school or not, provoking them is probably not the best way to do it. And especially, Donald Trump saying, fire and fury like the world has never
No,
seen.
yeah, definitely. But I mean, that does kind of go both ways. For little man over there to be poking the United States, regardless of who's holding the White House, let alone an orange madman, who really feels the need to convince everybody that his dick is larger than 2 inches hard. That's not a good idea either, especially with Trump in the fucking White House. It's not a good idea, and it wouldn't have been a good idea under Obama or Hillary or anybody else. Yeah, it was not tactful, his reply. But I think, I'm trying to be objective here, and I don't think I would have too big of a problem if this was still Obama, and Obama would have, as only he can really do, tactfully tell North Korea, like, I'll fucking end you. You know
See,
this.
the thing is, right, is this is the president of the United States, so there's ways that he could get that message directly to Kim Jong Un, right? I mean, it's not like Twitter is the best way to send
Well, I
these
mean,
messages.
this wasn't over Twitter. This was an actual interview.
And
but
I know this one wasn't, but I'm sure his next thoughts on Korea will come from Twitter, and they have previously.
And hopefully they won't contain any more classified info. You stupid ass. That happened earlier this morning.
So yeah, I think it's just there's better ways to do it. I mean, I think McCain mentioned, I don't see it right in front of me, but I think he mentioned kind of Teddy Roosevelt's "speak softly, carry a big stick."
Sure.
And that's always my kind of mentality.
Well,
so
if Trump had a bigger stick, he'd be able to speak a little less and probably more softly. But I mean, we'll continue to monitor the situation as it goes. But I mean, honestly, any time that Trump is poked by another country and doesn't cause World War III or another nuclear war, like that's my standard for the guy. So I'm just kind of happy that's what happened. And honestly, like I said, I feel a little bit better that Tillerson is handling this compared to anybody else on his fucking team. I'm not a big fan of Nikki Haley either, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. Again, it all comes down to China. But anyway, moving on. Speaking of our dipshit in chief, another thing that he came out with over the last week is called the RAISE Act, which stands for the Reform American Immigration for Stronger Employment Act. So in his own words, at a press conference with Tom fucking Cotton, I hate that guy. So he worked with 2 other Republicans and came up with the RAISE Act, which is going to, in their opinion, raise the wages for American workers and get a higher quality immigrant into the country and basically better everybody's life. In reality, here's what it's going to do. And this is all factual shit. I'm not making any of this up. Read the bill or go online and look at highlights. I swear to God, I swear to a Christian God, I guess. If you go onto Fox News, Fox News website, you're going to hear the same shit. So it's going to cut 50% of the legal immigrants that we let into the United States over the next decade. You can hear Trump say that. This will basically, other than cutting it in half, what it's going to do is it's going to force illegal immigrants to go off of a point system. And they're going to need to reach a total of 30 points to qualify. So basically, everybody's going to be going on that. And I'm going to go over how this point system works here in a minute. But just so you know, so you need 30 points to qualify. If you want to jump to the front of the line, it's kind of easy. All you got to do is present your Nobel Peace Prize, and you'll get an automatic 25 points. Yeah, pretty cool.
My foot's in the door.
A gold medal, I think, gets you like 12. An Olympic gold medal. So here's the thing, though. If I was living in Britain right now, and you all right over there?
Yeah, a gold medal like that has anything to do with your immigration status?
It's on there. Anyway, so if I lived in Britain, I would not qualify. So Time Magazine, if you guys go to Time Magazine and find this article, they actually put up a kind of a calculator where you go through the survey of questions that they're going to ask you, and they accumulate your points and tell you whether or not you would be allowed to immigrate to the United States under Trump's new policy. I would not. So I got 8 points for being age 31 to 35. I got 1 point for my highest completed education level being a high school diploma. I got 12 points for being fluent in English and 0 points for my salary. I do not make, I like when it asks you, do you have employment secured? So if you still live here, put in how much money you make a year. I got 0 points for that. And I ended up with a total of 21 out of 30. I am 9 points shy.
Did you happen to see what constituted 1 point for salary? I mean, do they want like a minimum of 110,000?
The cutoff was 77,900, and then after that it was a few points, and then it was like up to 230,000, that sort of thing.
Wait, so the least money you make, the better, is what you're saying? Or
no, the more. And I'll get to that bullshit here in a sec.
That's what I figured.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, I got 0 points, even though I make a decent living. So I ended with 21 points out of 30. I am 9 points shy of qualifying. So, and like I said, 2 of the questions on there is: have you won a Nobel Peace Prize, and were you awarded an Olympic gold medal? And one of the questions on there is the final question that the Time Magazine put on there was, are you going to invest in U.S.-based companies? And you need to invest up to you need to invest over $1.35 million to get any points. Under 1.35 mil, you get none. So, yeah.
And that's part of the whole Jared Kushner's family thing.
Oh, no. Don't go there. Don't spoil my shit.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I got that.
I didn't know you had that.
I'm going to go there. So, but before I go there, I'm going to go to another Trump. I'm going to go to another Trump by marriage. I'm going to go to Melania. So I ran Melania's score. She passed. Let that sink in.
Does she have a Nobel Peace Prize in her pocket?
Nobel Peace. No. She does not. So she gets 2 points for being 47, which, I mean, I'm surprised Trump's was somebody that old. So she gets 2 points for being 47. And I had to look up sources to find this out, but it looks like, according to several different sources that I read, including an unauthorized biography that was written about her, that she dropped out of, I'm going to butcher this word, Ljubljana University, which is a university in Slovenia. She dropped out after 1 year to go pursue modeling. So just like me, for having a high school education, she gets 1 point. I gave her, it's like, the rating system is your English speaking skills. Like horrible, moderate, good, excellent, and fluent. I put myself down as obviously fluent. I gave her moderate, which I think is a little more than she should. I think that's generous, yeah. And she gets 13 points for making over $155,000 a year. And she got 12 points for $1.8 million invested in U.S. Owned businesses, which there is debate that the Trumps don't invest shit in the United States. But I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt. But if you look at it this way, if you have the money, you automatically get 25 points for being rich. So,
yeah, but I think, to be fair, right? So that's with Trump. Without Trump, if you would have ran this test on her before she got married, she wouldn't have qualified. Just
likely not. She likely wouldn't have had the salary, and I wouldn't have been able to put her down for the investment. But I mean, the thing is you get 25 points for having a Nobel Prize, or you can get 25 points if you're rich and you're willing to put money into U.S.-based businesses, which will come up here in a minute. So I got to thinking, as I was running these numbers, I wonder, out of those 7 countries that he wanted to put the travel ban on, I wonder how many gold medals they have and how many Nobel Peace Prizes they have. So, I ran numbers for Iran, Syria, Iraq, Sudan, Libya, Somalia, and Yemen, the 7 countries he proposed the ban for. Iran has 2 Nobel, this is throughout history, and gold medals are for both combined for Winter and Summer Olympics. Iran has 2 gold medals, or 2 Nobel Peace Prizes and 32 gold medals. Iraq has 0 prizes, 68 gold medals. Yemen has 1 Nobel Prize, 0 medals. Syria, 0 Nobel Prizes, 3 medals. Sudan, 0 prizes, 1 medal. Libya and Somalia have none of either. So, what is the real motive of the new RAISE Act? Sounds to me like it's going to replace his travel ban. Or not his travel ban, but basically the immigration side of what his travel ban was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you heard Steve Miller, the brilliant Steve Miller.
Fucking guy.
And
I am appalled and shocked that you would insult immigrants like this. To think that only Australians and British people can speak English. You should be ashamed,
appalled
sir.
And shocked that you would think about dirty, smelly criminal immigrants.
Just because they're dirty and they smell and they have weird rituals does not mean that they can't learn to speak English. What a fucking idiot. And then Acosta's like, I mean, that whole argument, and it looks like he may be joining Sarah Huckabee Sanders on the communications trail. I hope he does. This was entertaining. He's such a dork, and I was watching last week, and John Oliver did a story on him, and there's a video of him running for like school president or something, and he's up there and he's like you, I am sick and tired of being told to clean up my trash when we have people that we pay to do that for us. And it's like, you entitled son of a bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
Fucking hell. Yeah, anyway. So, off of that guy. And I watched the Pauly Shore thing. I didn't think it was funny at all, but I don't know. Kudos to him for trying. But anyway, back to this this immigration deal. After all that, the icing on this huge vanilla cake is the Jared Kushner's family company has officially been subpoenaed by the New York federal prosecutors for selling green cards in exchange for investments of at least $500,000 into U.S.-based developments, of which 85% of those are Chinese. So we got Trump taking green cards away, and we have Kushner basically selling them like VIP passes at the back door. You got nothing on this?
I mean, it's amazing. It's the amount of like institutional corruption in this administration is just like, it's mind blowing. It's like, they obviously don't care. You know, it's gotten to the point where it's just like, we're gonna fuck the country right in front of you, and you're gonna sit there and like it.
I am not shocked and appalled for them to think that their supporters, all as of this morning, 32% of them. Trump's poll numbers have dropped even further. He's down to like 32%. As of today, and
he's catching up to Congress.
Anybody else tired of winning? So next up here, before we get to our discussions, real quick, just want to run everybody through one of the phone calls of which the transcript got leaked. The one to President Nieto from fucking Mexico. So, first off, Trump claims that he won 84% of the Cuban vote, and 30% of the Hispanic vote in the general. So here's the thing. Trump actually won between 50 and 58% of the Cuban vote, according to most polls, not 84%. And he's quoted as saying, I won well over the 30% mark for Hispanics. He only won 29, which is sad enough. He also claimed that he won New Hampshire, and he won New Hampshire because it is a drug-infested den. There's kind of some truth to that statement, right?
I mean, I just don't know how you're trying to, like, I know you got cartels over there. We got New Hampshire. You know?
Yeah. Well, the truth is, though, he lost New Hampshire to Hillary. He did not win that in the general election. And then he goes on to tell the president of Mexico that he has some very tough hombres living in Mexico, that he needs help knocking them out because he has not done a good job of it himself so far. Trump then goes on to say, now, here's my favorite part. This is my favorite part of this fucking transcript. All right, so Trump, on a different subject, says, if you are going to say that Mexico is not going to pay for the wall, then I don't want to meet with you guys anymore because I can't live with that. He's like, what fucking movie was that? I'm not riding my bike by your house anymore. It was one of those fucking 80s movies. So he says that to President Nieto, and the president of Mexico replies back, maybe you should just shut the fuck up about the wall and let the issue die. Trump then agrees. So basically, look this up. The transcript is there, and at no point has the White House said that the transcript is inaccurate. They're just pissed off at the leakers. They're never pissed off at what got leaked. They're just pissed off that it got leaked to begin with, and that's it. But unless it comes from Fox News, like what happened this morning when it came to the warhead stuff with North Korea. So basically, our master salesman, master negotiator that he ran on, told the president of Mexico, this is going to kill me. He even says that this is the least important issue that they have to discuss, but politically it is very important, and it will kill his support with his base if they find out that he's not negotiating hard for the wall or thinks that it is the least of their priorities. There you go, everybody. Find a Trump supporter and let them know Trump doesn't give a fuck about your goddamn wall. So anyway, oh God, he even goes into how Bibi from Israel told him the wall was a good idea, and it's a great idea. It's going to keep people out. He starts defending this to him. So eventually he's told, why don't you stop telling us publicly to pay for the wall? And when I don't get asked about it, I won't tell anybody that I'm not paying for it. And we let it go. And Trump agreed. There's your master negotiator right there at work. It's in black and white, the whole fucking transcript. Take you 2 seconds, look it up. So there's our master negotiator.
And I mean, like you said, that just shows the whole campaign was just a giant cloud of smoke that he blew up everyone's asses.
Exactly.
And they took it and made America great.
Yeah, I just, man, when I heard that, I thought it was hilarious. So, moving on, we only have time for one discussion topic, and I'll go over Robert Mueller real quick so we can get to our third discussion topic. We're going to have to skip our second one, but basically, Trump right now is going after Robert Mueller, the leader of the Russia collusion investigation, and saying that he's hiring a team of lawyers who are all Obama and Hillary Clinton donors. First off, Robert Mueller is a registered Republican, just as James Comey was. And Trump also claims that two of those members on Mueller's team have represented the Clintons in the past. Now, while this is true, they also represented Paul Manafort and members of the Trump family in the past. Robert Mueller has called for a second grand jury. A grand jury is usually made up of about 23 members, and they are responsible for examining the validity of an accusation before it goes to trial. The key note to take away from what's going on with this team is you have some really high-ranking lawyers that are really good at what they do from top law firms throughout the country. There's two takeaways here. One is they're quitting their practices and going on Mueller's team, which you do not do unless this is going to be something huge. And then the second thing to take away is the people that are doing that and joining Mueller's team. They all have a history in corporate fraud, real estate fraud, money laundering, and generally it's all under the fraud umbrella. So what they can do with this grand jury is subpoena witnesses and documents, including Trump's long-awaited tax returns. So, in a nutshell, there's your update. But the discussion that I wanted to get to tonight, and let me see, we got about 10 minutes left, is Alex and I were talking the other night when we're putting this episode together, is what do we do with the Trump supporters that we know? How do we have a factless world now. My facts and somebody else's facts are two different things. Thank Kellyanne Conway for giving us the term alternate facts. There's no such thing. So basically, what do we do? What do you think when we get into debates or just conversations with other people that are Trump supporters, and they think they have just as much confidence in their thought process and their points and the validity of those points as you do? What do we do?
Well, I mean, it's a tough one, and it depends on kind of the subject you guys, this where the debate is going or the discussion is going. But I think the thing that we're going to be able to do, not only we have part of it right now, but I think in the next 6 months, let's say, I think you're going to be able to reach, because these people are mostly emotional, right? I mean, it's not a logical level that they support Trump. They like him. They feel he's going to do good. They know he's going to bring change to Washington, whatever. It's not, they've studied it and can see that, statistically he's going to make a good president. It's nothing like that. It's on an emotional level. So I think you could do it right now with healthcare, right? You can say to a lot of people, and probably not your average. Well, I know that I've done it with a Republican that I work with. He makes a good amount of money. He's fairly well informed, and he supported Trump. But I left him alone for a while. Now we've kind of been recently talking about it again. And he pretty much said, he's a jackass. He's either a jackass or he's brilliant, and this was all part of his plan. He throws that caveat in there. But I think he's pretty much realized that, and the connection that I was trying to make is that his mother's elderly and on Social Security, and so how it's going to affect her, the Trump care would affect her. And, when he could make that emotional connection between, oh, shit, my mom's going to have to start paying 4 times more and she can barely, afford what she has right now. I think that makes it a little more, it hits home a little bit more. And I'm not saying that after I told him that he said, oh, fuck Trump, but he was kind of on, he was like saying, oh, he's stupid. He's been doing dumb shit. And then we kind of were talking about the healthcare. And I think he realized, like, man, this is people that I know are going to get fucked by this. And right now we have healthcare as, the main one. And luckily that didn't pass, but it's still the thought was there. And I think now if you get more and more of these things where, tax reform, we'll see how that goes. But more and more where you can show it. And I get what you're saying. When you show people, they don't see it, but
until it affects them.
Exactly.
So your answer, we've talked about this even months ago, that it's going to take people either dying or coming close to it or staring not even just death, but financial ruin right in the face for them to actually get it. And that's one thing I don't want to hear is anybody blaming Obama. Not because I was a Obama supporter and all that. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the fact that they have control of all three branches. Like, it's done. You cannot blame the obstructionist Democrats. It took your Republicans to knock that healthcare bill down. And I agree with you. We were talking the other day, and they're going after tax reform, and tax reform probably isn't going to pass either, because that's only going to hurt their uninformed supporters and voters back home in the states for senators and House of Representatives. They're not going to do that on a fucking election year. So, I mean, who the fuck knows? I mean, they might, but, yeah, I don't, you can, the day of proving somebody wrong by showing them evidence just seems to be over. And it's a huge shame, because we all carry a phone.
But I think part of that, and not to, to our own horn or people that think alike, but I think most people that value evidence are already on our side, right? So that's kind of the problem, and it's bridging the difference between logic and emotion, I guess, and kind of crossing over and appealing to them maybe on some emotional level, and kind of not bypassing logic, but kind of using it in the background. And I'm not saying I have that formula down, because I don't, but I think finding that is kind of our solution, where we're able to, make them feel like, hey, you're getting fucked over here. And to be honest, that's part of it too, right? When you talk to most Republicans, they feel like they're getting fucked too, and that's why Trump was supposed to change the whole thing. But I mean, I can agree with probably 7 out of 10 Republicans that big pharma is fucking us, and big oil, or you know what I mean. Like they'll rag on these industries that are fucking us.
But I spent time earlier this week arguing with somebody that said the left wants an authoritarian government, and I'm like, so I mean, basically, this guy called Obama a fascist. So I gave him the definition of fascism, and it's along the lines of flexing military strength, getting into bickerments with people with anybody that insults you, and basically promoting the fact that you're the only guy that can fix what's wrong. Does that not sound familiar? I mean, all three of those things. Not once did I ever hear Obama go up there and say, I need to be elected because I'm the only one that has all the answers. Like, that never, ever came out of that guy's mouth. It never came out of Hillary's mouth. It never came out of George W. Bush's mouth. For damn sure, it better not have came out of George W. Bush's mouth. But, I mean, the thing is it's just, you have a phone. You can show somebody a fact right on the spot. But this is the brilliance of Trump or Roger Stone, or somebody in that Trump circle, not only connected the dots when it came to the underlying hate in this country, which I think you were dumb to think it wasn't there, but I think we were all dumb to think it wasn't anywhere big as what it actually is. And I think of somebody who knew what the fuck they were talking about in that circle, not only identified that, but also identified the how basically susceptible to fake news people really are. And if you just call the other side fake news, you're good. So I don't know. I think I agree with you. I don't think there really is an answer for that. I think the answer is wait until he fucks his own people. So with that, I wanted to plug a documentary. I've talked about the CNN series, the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s that are all on Netflix, and they're fucking amazing. They're really well done. But right now, the '90s is on, and the '90s has been on for a few weeks. And for people like Alex and I, who are around, who are around, late 20s to mid 30s or so, that really grew up in that decade, there's a lot of stuff that I kind of vaguely remember. A lot of stuff I don't remember at all. And this past week's episode, which I think would have been episode 4, it's focused on terrorism, and basically it talks about kind of what I just said about underestimating the underlying hate of all these different groups of white working class people that were just fed the fuck up with the government for one way or another. And it seemed like that sort of deal it got a huge boost in the 1990s with Ruby Ridge and the Oklahoma City bombing, which is a result of Waco, and quite a few other things that went on. What's his name? Not TBK, the Unabomber and shit like that. So anyway, I encourage everybody to watch that. Alex, you got anything else?
No, that's pretty much it. Just, again, like you said, I mean, domestic terrorism was, the biggest threat. And it is still, I think, in my opinion, the biggest threat that right now is so easily overlooked because of the damn Islamics. I mean, I'm obviously not in favor of religion either, but I think it's easy to look abroad and say this is our problem, when really we got all these hate groups here at home that are arming themselves to the teeth and getting ready for war. So,
yeah, and there's sex all over the damn place, typically with their sisters. All right, anyway. All right, so let's go ahead and conclude here. This has been Mike and Alex. This was episode 74 of the Age of Reason podcast. We're not for the faint of thought. You can follow us on Twitter at AOR_podcast. Follow us on Twitter. I've been getting some interesting arguments. The Age of Reason podcast page on Facebook and everything else, including our GoFundMe and Patreon links on AORpodcast.com. We have a few more donations, so thank you guys. Again, we're taking all these donations. We're not putting it in our pockets. We're putting it back into the show. We want to expand. We got some equipment needs that we need to get met, and then I don't know. Eventually, we want to take this to video, but that's further down the road. So if you got any money to spare, you want to throw some money towards the cause, hit the donate link on the ageofreasonpodcast.com, or find the pinned post on our Facebook page. So with that, we will be back next week, and then the week after.
No, we're going to take next week off, I thought. Next week off, and then we'll go 2 weeks.
So let me ask. I'm gonna be in your neck of the woods. We're gonna record an episode.
Yeah, definitely.
In person. Maybe we can get Nick in there, so we can get all three of us in one spot for the very first time. So, all right. So I take that back. We will be off next week and back the following week, and then we'll be doing an episode together for our episode towards the end of the month. So stay safe, everybody. We'll see you next time.